Hello, my name is Draconic Celestial, and today I will tell you everything you need to know about the Resident Evil series. I'll start by covering all the mainline games so you can figure out where to start and the best versions of each game to play. I'll also recommend some different playthrough orders, and if you want some more content, I'll be spending the rest of the video covering spin-offs, movies, and more. With all that out of the way, let's get started. Resident Evil begins with Alpha Team investigating a forest after Bravo Team disappears. Bravo Team was sent to investigate a series of cannibalistic murders. They find a dead body from Bravo Team before getting attacked by mutated dogs. Joseph dies and Brad flies away.
No! Don't go!
Leaving the rest of the group stranded. The remaining members of Alpha Team now are
Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, Barry Burton, Rebecca Chambers, Albert Wesker.
They take shelter in a mansion, and then the game begins. Before I go into gameplay, I'm going to go over the two versions of the original Resident Evil, the original and the remake. This is going to be the case for the first couple of games on this list. Both versions of the game are good, but I'm going to go ahead and say that the remake will be the best way to play. It's easier to get your hands on and has a lot of improvements that make the game a better experience. It keeps the tank controls and fixed camera angles so that you still get something close to the original experience. The voice acting is improved as well, but you miss out on the iconic voice acting of the original.
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
Before you start the game, you have the option to pick between two characters, Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine. There will be slight gameplay and story differences between the two. Jill will be a little easier to play with. She has access to the lockpick, the grenade launcher, and 8 inventory slots. Chris has a bit more HP, but has 6 inventory slots, a lighter, and access to the flamethrower. Just pick whichever is your favorite. You'll be seeing a lot more of these characters in future installments. Once you're given control of your character, you will quickly run into your first zombie. You will be using guns with limited ammo to shoot at enemies during this game. With fixed camera angles, you need to simply face in the direction you want to shoot and then aim. You have a little more control as you can change directions to aim more up or down. Now let's go over save points. In every game, you'll be saving at typewriters and safe rooms. In this game, your saves are limited. You'll be picking up ink ribbons and each one gives you a single save. While this definitely adds to the horror, I personally hate limited saves. I tend to save as often as possible in any game, and if I'm really busy, I like being able to play for short bursts, but still be able to save and hop off if I need to. When you play this game, keep this in mind. If this scares you away, I still recommend giving the game a shot, as it's still very much worth playing, and if you still can't stand it, look up gameplay or cutscenes online so you can still experience what happened. Next, let's go over healing. First off, when you go into your inventory menu, there will be a little meter in the corner that shows what your health is at. If it's green, you're fine. If it's yellow, you've lost some health, and if it's red, you are very low. There are a couple different healing items you'll find around the mansion. The healing spray does the most healing, and you will start with 1 in your inventory. The next items will be herbs. These come in a few different colors and can be combined, so let's go over what all of those are. Green herbs have limited healing when used alone. When you combine green and red, it will heal about the same as a first aid spray. Blue herbs can cure you from poison. The red herbs always strengthens the herb it's combined with. Now, why is combining so important? That brings us into the most important part of the gameplay: inventory management. In every Resident Evil game, you will have a very limited inventory in this game. Specifically, you only have 6 or 8 slots, depending on who you picked. Combining herbs will help you go from losing 2 spaces to only 1. 2 of your spaces will almost always be taken up by a gun and a stack of ammunition. On top of the healing items and weapons, you will also be picking up key items for puzzles. If you need to organize and move things, let me introduce you to your new best friend: boxes. In almost every safe room, you will find a box next to the typewriter. You can store items here, and you can pick up these same items from any box in the mansion. Make sure to pick and choose what you think will be the most important to keep in your limited inventory. Now, there's one more aspect of gameplay I'm going to go over: puzzles. If you haven't caught on by now, you're going to have to put a lot of brainpower into this game. It looks like a basic action shooter, where you can solve every problem with a gun, But with limited inventory and constant puzzles, you need to be constantly aware of what you have and how you want to play the game between saves. Fear in this game isn't just jump scares, but that zombies can appear at any moment and you might not be prepared for it. But when you manage to pass and solve things, it's really satisfying. Back to puzzles. There will be different key items that you will find around the mansion for puzzles. I find that storing these until I can find where they are being used helps to keep my inventory more open, even if it means backtracking when I find a puzzle. If you ever find a puzzle but don't seem to have an item you need to keep going, let me introduce you to your map. When you look at your map, you will notice some of the rooms are red and some are blue. This is how you figure out where items are. Rooms that are colored red have items you haven't grabbed yet. Once you get all the items from the room, it will turn blue. I highly recommend taking plenty of time to explore until your whole map is blue. This way, you will have plenty of items. The last type of item you'll be finding throughout the game is documents. These won't take up space in your inventory, but if you want to know more about what's going on in the story, then you have to read. These documents will be scattered around the mansion, so keep an eye out. The gameplay here is going to pretty much be the same throughout the entire series. I'll go over any changes in future games, but this will be the base mechanics for all of the mainline games. One final thing to keep in mind is that there are 12 possible endings depending on which character you play as and the choices you make in the game. These aren't super big changes, but they give enough replayability to try each character at least once and maybe play again to get the best endings. If you want to play the original Resident Evil, there are a few ways to play it. The first is the original PS1 copy, but these tend to be a little pricier. The PS1 Director's Cut is cheaper and you get banger music. There are also ports for Windows, Sega Saturn, and Nintendo DS, but these are all expensive. The cheapest way to get it would be to buy it through GOG. Resident Evil Remake is available on GameCube, Wii, PS3, PS4, PC, Xbox 360, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. I got the PS4 bundle that comes with Resident Evil 0. I recommend getting the bundle if you can, since you get 2 games instead of just 1. Don't shoot!
Get down!
First things first. Do you need to play RE1 to understand RE2? No, you can still understand this game without having played its predecessor. The game starts by explaining the events of the previous game, and documents will provide more context throughout the game. However, I think that knowing the first game will enhance your experience since Claire is Chris's little sister, and knowing more about stars will help you understand the story better. Resident Evil 2 begins differently depending on who you pick. For the PS1 version of the game, this is dependent on which disc you put in. Disc 1 will have you playing as Leon, and Disc 2 will have you playing as Claire. The way these two character routes work is a little different than the first game. Whichever character you play first will put you on that character's A route. You can pick whichever route you want to start with first, but if you want to pick the most canon route, start with Claire A. After you complete Claire A, you will unlock Leon's B scenario to show you what he was doing during Claire's route. This also applies to starting with Leon's A route, as completing it will unlock Claire's B route. These storylines will be slightly different from each other, but pick whoever you want to start out with and go from there. The game begins with one of the two characters driving into town, only to discover it's filled with zombies. Claire and Leon run into each other and try to head to the police station before a car crash and explosion separates them. This is where the game begins. The gameplay here is pretty much the same as Resident Evil 1. One change is that at certain times you can leave items for other characters. This can help make your B route playthrough a bit easier, or you can choose to make it harder by taking those items the first time around. When you get to your B route, a new foe is going to appear at the start. Mr. X will be stalking you throughout your playthrough, and you cannot kill him permanently. Try to avoid wasting ammo on him unless you have no other way to get away from him. He can be knocked down, but he will return. Depending on what difficulty you play on and how well you play the game, will give you a ranking at the end. This helps with the replayability, and better rankings can unlock more weapons. After you've completed one full playthrough, A route and B route, you will unlock a mini campaign called Fourth Survivor. If you beat the game 6 times in a row with A rank, you can unlock Tofu Survivor. The original PS1 game has a lot of different ways you can play it. The Nintendo 64 version isn't too expensive if you don't mind only getting the cartridge. It's also available for PS1, Dreamcast, and GameCube, but these can all be kind of expensive. The cheapest way to get it is through GOG. Another way you can own this game is by playing the remake. The remake is a great way to experience Resident Evil 2. The story and routes are very similar with some small changes. One big change is that Mr. X will start appearing during the A route, not just the B route. I had such a fun time with Mr. X.
Give me a break.
The routes in this game are instead called second runs. After you've completed a character's A route, you want to go to a new game, second run, to play the B scenario. One obvious change is the switch from fixed camera angles to the over-the-shoulder. This will be the case for all of the remakes. Gunpowder combinations are added here. When you find gunpowder, you can combine these to make different types of ammo. Read the descriptions to see how to combine them so you can get more ammo for your weapons. My favorite addition here is that you can now unlock extra storage. You can find hip pouches that unlock extra spots in your inventory. The remake also has some extra scenarios you can play. The Fourth Survivors unlock the same same way as the original, but Tofu Survivor is unlocked after beating the 4th survivor. If you go to extra modes and click on the ghost survivors, there are some what if scenarios you can play through, and if you beat them all, you will unlock one extra scenario. These what if scenarios also include practice modes if you are struggling to beat them. I highly recommend the remake as it is easy to get your hands on and has a lot of replayability. Resident Evil 2 Remake is available on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series S and X, PC, Switch, and mobile.
Commitment, honesty, integrity, these are the core values that create the foundation for Umbrella. It's this foundation that will continue to build a brighter future for all of us.
After the events of Resident Evil 1, Jill and the remaining members of STARS have been working to bring down Umbrella. She's staying in Racoon City when the zombie virus begins. Your main goal in this game is to escape. I recommend playing Resident Evil 1 and 2 before this one, but you can still enjoy this game without playing the earlier ones. The game plays similarly to classic Resident Evil 1 and 2. Some of the new changes include a dodge mechanic and a quick turn when you are running. You also have a few more slots available than in previous games. This is also when the gunpowder system was originally introduced. If you played Resident Evil 2 Remake, you will know how this works, but if not, there will be a game manual in your inventory that you can read. A new mechanic is the life selection system. There will be certain segments where you can choose whether you want to fight or run away. These are mainly when you encounter the new enemy chasing you around, Nemesis. He's similar to Mr. X and will be trying to kill you throughout the entire game. The choices you make will affect where you go and what items you might find. There are also 2 different difficulty options at the start, hard and easy. If you pick easy, it gives you unlimited saves and a bunch of weapons and ammo. If you want to play through the game with no stress, I recommend easy mode. There are 2 variations of the ending, as well as 9 different epilogues you can unlock if you choose to replay the game. Resident Evil 3 is available on PS1, Dreamcast, and GameCube. The cheapest way to get it would be through GOG. Resident Evil 3 Remake is a good game, but it has some issues when compared to the original. The cons of this one are that they do cut out some areas from the original game. Nemesis is also not as threatening a presence since his appearances are a little more scripted. The life selection segments were also removed in the remake. The overall level design is more linear and doesn't feel as open as the original when it comes to exploring the city. There are improvements though. The game is able to be more action focused, which was harder to accomplish on the PS1. The story has improved as well as the characters. The intro is also really cool. It has a slight bit of build up before literally throwing you into the action.
Listen, you gotta get out of there.
What are you talking about?
I don't have time to explain. You gotta get out of there right now.
All right, let me grab my...
The biggest improvement, in my opinion, is Carlos. Unfortunately, he left us in a cruel, Carlosless world after this game. Please come home. The kids miss you. The gameplay is the same as Resident Evil 2 Remake. The newest thing they added to this is that you can break boxes with your knife. I also recommend taking the time to read through all of the files because it will sum up things from RE1 if you didn't want to play that game. For Resident Evil 3, I highly recommend playing both versions. They are both good for different reasons, and I think it's worth experiencing them. For the order, I would play the remake first so you can enjoy it as is, and then play the original. This way you won't be as mad when you play the remake because you won't really know what's been cut. That's how I played it, and I really enjoyed both games. Resident Evil 3 Remake is available on PS4, PS5, PC, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, Switch, and mobile. Code Veronica starts with Claire Redfield trying to escape a facility where she was looking for her brother Chris. She gets kidnapped and then the game begins. I'm going to start by recommending you at least play Resident Evil 1 and 2 before this one, or all 3 if you're up for it. The game plays similarly to the classic Resident Evils except for one major thing. The game does not always use fixed camera angles, and backgrounds are no longer pre-rendered. There are no difficulty levels, so good luck if you are as bad at games as I am. The plot for this game is entertaining, and the voice acting is very well done.
Alexia?
One of the main characters is hard to like. Steve is someone you're either gonna love or hate, no in between. I think he's kind of funny, but at the same time, I really want to punch him in the face. Be prepared to deal with his bullshit. About halfway through the game, you are going to be switching between two characters. I recommend being mindful of your inventory and maybe even looking up when these switches happen, because once you switch, you won't have access to anything in the previous character's inventory. This makes it incredibly easy to soft lock the game, so using a guide might be a better way to experience this. This game has some incredibly annoying enemies and mechanics, but it's still interesting. The story is also intriguing with a bunch of mysteries. There are rumors of a remake, but nothing is confirmed. If this game gets a remake, it would probably make the game so much better, but in the meantime, it's still worth checking out. There are a couple of ways you can play this game. There is the original Dreamcast version. The game was released on other consoles as Code Veronica X. This includes extra cutscenes that enhance the story and set up future games. I highly recommend getting any version of Code Veronica X. It's available on PS2 and GameCube.
Do you think so too?
Yeah.
Do about it.
Hold off for a while.
But I wonder how those R&D people would react to this.
Resident Evil 0 begins with Bravo team crashing into a forest. You will be playing as Rebecca Chambers, who you might recognize from Resident Evil 1. This game is a prequel and takes place the day before RE1. You don't need to know any of the previous games to play this one. This game plays similarly to classic Resident Evil, but there are some new changes. The biggest change is the ability to swap between characters. Past games have had two different characters, but they had separate routes. You can switch between Rebecca and Billy at any point in the game. Each character has things they can and can't do. Rebecca can mix items together, Billy is strong, and you'll need to use them specifically for certain puzzles. They also both have their own inventory. This can be a bit of a pain to manage at times. You can have characters exchange items with each other. However, one major change in this game is that there are no inventory boxes. You can drop items and the map will show their location if you want to pick them up later. This only applies to items that were in your inventory. If you pass by an item and decide not to pick it up, the map will not show it. Backtracking can happen a lot in this game. Be careful about how much healing and ammo each character has, because there are certain points in the game where you might be stuck with only one of them. There are some extra controls to help with the AI of the partner character. You can have them stay or follow, which is kind of helpful for puzzles. You can also choose whether they attack or stay passive around enemies. Keep in mind that if characters are low on ammo or have low health while you aren't near them, they can still die and you will get a game over. I find it hard to recommend this game because some of the changes just make this game difficult to enjoy. I definitely wouldn't recommend this game to start with unless you really want to play the game in chronological order. If you want to play this game, I highly recommend getting the Origins collection. This way you can try the game out, but if you decide you don't like it, you still have Resident Evil 1. Resident Evil 0 is available on GameCube, Wii, PS3, PS4, PC, Xbox 360, Xbox One, and Switch.
September 30th, 1998. It's a day I'll never forget.
Resident Evil 4 begins with Leon being assigned a message to save the president's daughter. After the events of the second game, he's been hired by the government. You don't need to know any of the previous games before playing this, but I recommend playing at least RE2 before this one, specifically Leon's route. The game has some of the biggest changes to the classic Resident Evil format. First off, the camera angle has switched from fixed to an over-the-shoulder perspective. The game is also split into chapters. You'll be exploring a couple of different big areas, but be warned that there are points of no return, so make sure you're ready to move on before you walk into the next big cutscene. This game rewards you for exploring, so really make sure to look everywhere. The game's combat is a bit more action-focused than past games. It's still similar in that you will be shooting and killing zombies, but be prepared for some unique level design to keep you on your toes. The game also introduces QTEs, which can be annoying at times. I died a billion times to a boulder because it didn't think I spammed X enough. Keep an eye out for wires and bear traps. These are scattered throughout the map, so make sure to avoid or shoot them so you don't take as much damage. Like previous games, there are different guns you can get, but in this game you will occasionally run into the merchant. This is where you can buy more weapons, ammo, healing items, and a new feature, upgrading weapons. You'll find currency around the map and also when you kill enemies. You can spend those here. You can also sell some things to get more money, but keep in mind that if something looks like it's part of a set, wait, and then you can sell it for even more. For instance, you can take treasures and put gems in them, and that will up the price. You might have noticed that the inventory looks different here compared to past games. You'll be organizing all of your items by size, sort of like a game of Tetris. Luckily, you'll be able to increase storage space as you progress. Take some time to organize things so that you can really maximize the space that you have. Partway through the game, you will find Ashley. Now you have to spend the rest of the game protecting her. It's basically one big long escort mission. There are a couple of commands you can use to keep her out of the way. You can have her wait, follow, or hide in certain areas. Make sure you keep her alive or it's game over. Make sure she's not kidnapped or it's game over. And if you accidentally shoot her while trying to save her, it's game over. Good luck! For real though, she's gonna actively try to stay out of danger, so just try your best to protect her. At a certain point, you will find shooting ranges. Do these whenever you find them to win prizes, and also because you might not be able to come back to them later. Shoot these little blue medallions when you see them, so you can unlock a new weapon. There are boxes and barrels you can break for items, but always swing twice. Trust me. After you beat the game, you will unlock separate ways. This is a story following what Ada was doing throughout the game. You'll mostly be revisiting some areas, but this also helps to flesh out the story, so I recommend it. This scenario also introduces a new mechanic. The grappling hook will help you travel to different places. Resident Evil 4 is available on pretty much everything, so you should be able to get your hands on it. The latest and greatest version of this game is the Resident Evil 4 remake, which is where I've been pulling most of my footage from. This plays similarly to the previous remakes, but with all of the added features from the original RE4. There's a bit more focus on knife mechanics in this one, and you are now able to parry. You can auto-sort your inventory if you don't feel like sorting it yourself. The shop is improved with more items and new ways to combine gems. The merchant also has lots of new quests you can fulfill for new items. The shooting minigame is improved, but now gives you coins for a gacha machine. This gacha machine will give you charms that have upgrades if you equip them. The game's plot is different, but not by much. They improve the story and the characters feel more fleshed out. However, it loses some of the campiness, and we no longer have some of the iconic lines from the original version.
No way, Leon!
Way?
I've been expecting you, my brethrens.
No thanks, bro.
The game is also scarier now with some of its gameplay and monsters. The remake also has a Separate Ways DLC that is available for $10. This version is much improved with new story elements. This DLC also includes some of the cut content that didn't make it into the remake, and no longer feels like Ada is just retreading parts from the original story, but now has her own story and enemies. Resident Evil 4 Remake is filled with things to do, so you won't ever get bored with this game. RE4 Remake is available on PS4, PS5, PC, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation VR, and mobile.
Captain Deshant here. We've secured the underground route to the coordinates.
Resident Evil 5 begins with Chris Redfield heading to a country in Africa to look for bioterrorist weapons. When he arrives, he meets Shiva. This will be your partner throughout the game. She's a great character, and I think they should bring her back at some point. Please, Capcom. You don't need to know previous games, but I recommend playing RE1 and Code Veronica before jumping into 5. Half of the story is in the files and memos for this one, most of which can only be read in the menu. For this game in particular, I really recommend reading these if you want a better understanding of the plot. I'll take this moment to mention the new gameplay element, co-op. Shiva can be controlled by AI, but you can choose to play the game with a friend as well. A lot of people complain about the AI, so I really recommend finding a friend to play with you to improve the experience. You can also turn friendly fire off if you're worried about hitting your partner. I played the game with a friend and it was really fun. The game is similar to Resident Evil 4 since it's more action-oriented and has a chapter system, but there are still some differences. Combat is a bit faster than in previous games, however, you stand still when reloading, so be careful about when you reload. Chris is also buff as hell now and can stomp on enemies' heads. The item screen does not pause anything, so make sure you won't die before using it. Items are back to all taking up a single spot. You can trade items with Shiva, and it feels similar to RE0 for keeping both characters well equipped. The merchant is no longer a character, but you can still buy and sell things between chapters. The screen also appears whenever you die. The story can be a little insane at times, and it has some infamous QTEs. But but despite its many flaws, it's a fun co-op game. I don't recommend starting here, but give it a shot if you like more action-focused games. RE5 also has 2 different DLCs. The first one covers Chris and Jill when they infiltrate the Spencer estate, not to be confused with the Spencer Mansion. This DLC is a little more puzzle-focused, so if you prefer the classic Resident Evils, you'll like this DLC. The second DLC covers one of the characters escaping an area during RE5, which I won't go into due to spoilers. I'm going to take a moment to go into gold versions of games. You'll start to notice from here on out that some of the games will have gold written on the cover. This means that it comes with all of the DLC. I highly recommend getting gold versions of the games as it's usually cheaper than buying the game and DLC separately. Resident Evil 5 is available on PS3, PS4, Xbox 360, Xbox One, PC, and Switch.
Resident Evil Revelations.
Revelations begins with Jill and her new partner on a mission to look for Chris. This game is technically a spin-off, but I see it included with mainline titles a lot, so that's why I'm putting it in this section, as well as its sequel, but we'll get to that later. The game covers the time between Resident Evil 4 and 5. You don't need to know previous games, but I recommend 1, 3, 5, and Code Veronica if you want to be caught up on Jill and Chris's storylines. Before we jump into gameplay, I want to point out that this game was originally designed for the 3DS. It's episodic and designed to be played in short bursts, so the pacing is a little weird. If you play it for an extended period of time, it also has a bad habit of jumping between the main scenario and action-focused flashbacks. The game plays like 4 and 5, but this is the first time in the series that you can move and shoot at the same time. Your inventory is no longer limited except for your weapons. You can only carry 3 weapons at a time, but you can keep other weapons in boxes. In the boxes, you can upgrade and change out weapons. This gives you the freedom to customize weapons to your preferred playstyle. The big new mechanic is the Genesis scanner. You'll be using this to scan enemies and other things. The more you scan, the more free items you can get. You can also use it to look for hidden objects. You will be playing with an AI-controlled partner, but they are pretty good at keeping themselves alive, and you don't need to worry about their inventory. Not a great place to start, but if you are a fan of Chris or Jill, I recommend checking it out. Revelations is available on 3DS, Wii U, Switch, PS3, PS4, PC, Xbox 360, and Xbox One.
Resident Evil 6.
Resident Evil 6 is a bit of a mess. There are 4 different story campaigns you can play through. You can play in any order, but most people just play in the order that's shown on the menu. This game leans even more into the action and kinda loses the horror aspect, so if you prefer the survival horror of the previous games, you probably won't enjoy this one. Let's get into the new gameplay. It doesn't play similarly to any previous games due to being so action-focused. You can now move while shooting, and there's a lot more melee combat, so if you run out of ammo, you can just beat the shit out of enemies. Once you attack an enemy, it will mutate. Be careful because while it mutates, you can't do any damage, so wait for the animation to finish before attacking again. HP is now a bar in the corner rather than a heartbeat monitor. There are some new movement mechanics so that you can roll, dive, and slide on the ground. There are also a lot of vehicle sections that can be very frustrating. The game also introduces a waypoint system so you can easily figure out where to go next. Co-op is back in this game for all of the campaigns. The AI works well if you want to play it solo. You don't have to worry about inventory and protecting your partner as much as in previous games since they will keep themselves alive, but if they do die, it's game over. Gameplay is slightly different for each campaign, but nothing major. I really advise against this being where you start. It uses a lot of characters from past games and is not as well liked by the fan base. It's definitely meant to be played after beating like all of the other games. If you want another action co-op game, then maybe give it a try, but don't have high expectations for it. Resident Evil 6 is available on PS3, PS4, Xbox 360, Xbox One, PC, and Switch.
Claire Redfield, you're coming with us.
No, there must be some kind of...
Revelations 2 takes place between RE5 and 6. It stars Claire Redfield and Barry Burton, so if you are a fan of those characters, this might be worth checking out. The games I recommend checking out before this if you want to know more about these characters are Resident Evil 1, 2, Code Veronica, and 5. The game is a third-person survival horror, but it has some differences from the rest of the series. You can no longer craft ammo and herbs, you can only pick it up from the environment. Crafting is only reserved for sub-weapons and specific healing items. Unlike the first game, your inventory is now limited. When you get injured, blood will start to fill up the screen. In certain scenarios, you have to use tourniquets or disinfectant, but those can only be accessed from the menu. Like RE5, the menu does not pause the game, so it can be annoying when your screen is covered in gunk and you have to go through your menu to heal while also not dying from enemies. The game has 4 characters sorted into 2 pairs. Claire and Burton will play normally, but their partner characters cannot use guns. They are limited to certain melee weapons and throwable items. The partner characters have an ability that will help you locate extra items. Similar to RE0, you will be able to switch between the 2 at any point. Console versions of the game have co-op, but not the PC version. A skill system has been introduced in the game. Between chapters, you will be able to use the BP that you earned based on how well you played. There are many skills you can get, so make sure to read through what they do before purchasing. Some of them will require you to change how you play to do more damage. Be careful with some choices throughout the game. It has a good ending and a bad ending. The game also has 2 extra DLC episodes. The first one you play as Moira, and it covers a time skip in the game. The DLC has you starting off by hunting and getting rations. These work as extra lives, and if you don't have any when you die, you have to restart the DLC. The other DLC has you playing as Natalia and mainly contains stealth missions. The systems in this game can be unnecessarily overcomplicated, so I advise against this being where you start. However, I have heard this be considered to be an underappreciated spin-off, so if you like the series, I think you should check it out. The game is available on PS3, PS4, PC, Xbox 360, Xbox One, Vita, and Switch. Resident Evil 7 was a complete reboot for the series. It returned to its survival horror roots, and goddamn is it scary. The story follows Ethan Winters, who is looking for his missing wife. This game is part of my favorite genre, which I like to call Find My Wife horror. You will be spending the game exploring this disgusting family home to save your wife and escape the family. The first major change you will notice is that the game is in first person instead of third. There is also a VR version of this game if you want to be even more terrified. Other than that, the game plays similarly to previous games. Ammo is more limited compared to the action-focused games that we had previously, and your reload speed is slower. Your health is located on a watch you will acquire early on in the game. Healing items are the same, but instead of just taking them, they have turned into goop that you just pour on your arm whenever you're injured. You will mainly be exploring a disgusting old house in Louisiana. You'll be fighting mold monsters, which essentially function the same as zombies, bugs, and the family.
Welcome to the family, son.
The family will be acting as your stalker characters, similar to Mr. X, but mainly the stalker will be Jack Baker. Puzzles are more important again, so make sure to put your thinking caps on before starting this game. The game also features some extra DLC content focusing on different characters. Not a Hero focuses on Chris Redfield, and it's free. If you don't get the gold edition or don't feel like buying extra DLC, at least you can play this one. The first 2 DLC are Banned Footage 1 and 2. These are a mix of new levels and puzzles you can play. Volume 2 includes a piece of story content that serves as a prequel to the main game that is worth checking out. End of Zoe is the last DLC, and it's not very good. I don't recommend it unless you just really want to beat up Molded with your bare hands. This game doesn't really require any previous knowledge of the series to enjoy. This was my first Resident Evil, and if you're mainly interested in the horror side of the franchise, I think this is a great place to start. If you want more knowledge of things that will be in this game, I recommend playing at least Resident Evil 1, Code Veronica, 5, Revelations, and 6 before this game. The game is available on PS4, PS5, PC, Xbox One, Xbox X and S, Switch 1 and 2, and mobile.
Long ago, a young girl went with her mother to pick berries for her father, who was hard at work. But the forest greeted them with a dark, cold silence, the bushes empty. Yet determined to find the berries, the rascal broke free from Mother's grasp and vanished into the trees.
Resident Evil Village is the 8th main installment in the series. You once again play as Ethan Winters. After moving to a new place with Mia, his daughter is taken and you have to find her. The game has made a very big switch from the gross baker's house you started in, and you're now in a gothic village and a beautiful castle that you get to explore. The characters are also much prettier to look at. The gameplay takes inspiration from both RE7 and RE4. If you've played either of those games before this, the gameplay will make sense. A merchant named the Duke is in this game. Here you can buy and sell items. If you kill items, you can harvest their meat and go to the merchant to cook meals that permanently increase your stats. There is also tilt minigames in each of the major sections where you can earn crystallized remains to sell to the Duke. I'm not going to go too in depth on the gameplay here since it's honestly really similar to Resident Evil 4, just without the escort mission. I highly recommend playing at least Resident Evil 7 before playing this one to fully understand the story and gameplay. It's very much like a direct sequel for Ethan Winters' story. Chris Redfield will be making a return in this game, so the games I mentioned playing before 7 are also some good options if you want to know more about the characters. Village also includes a DLC that takes place after the events of the main game. I highly recommend checking it out, but I won't be going in depth on it because of spoilers. If you get the gold version of the game, that will come with the DLC. Resident Evil Village is available on PS4 and 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, PC, Switch 1 and 2, mobile, and Stadia.
Hey, that's a restricted area. You can't go in there.
Why?
It's an active crime scene.
Oh, right. Sorry. Just a sec.
Oh, you're FBI?
Yeah.
Investigating all these strange deaths, huh?
Mm-hmm.
It's the 5th one now, right? I heard they all have the same weird bruises, so you think it's something infectious, or terrorism, or... Why else would the FBI be investigating, right? Hey, are you with me?
Oh, there might be answers inside.
Yeah, sure, right. Be careful in there. Whole building's condemned. Word is they're finally gonna bring the whole place down.
Yeah, thanks.
Finally, we arrive at Resident Evil Requiem, the latest installment. It looks very good, and I am dying to play it. Never mind, I'm terrified to play this. Like many of the games before this, you will be playing as 2 different characters. Rather than just picking who you want to play at the start, you will be switching between the 2 throughout the game. You also now have the option to pick your point of view. The default and I think best way to play is Grace in first person and Leon in third. Let's look into how each character plays. Grace Ashcroft will be the first character you play as. She's an FBI analyst and her sections are terrifying. It's a lot more horror focused, which is why I recommend first person to really make it scary. You'll be hiding from giant scary monsters and fighting other zombies. She has a melee option, but unlike Leon's iconic roundhouse kick, her shove does not do any damage. It does, however, knock the enemy over, giving you time to shoot or escape. Her section also introduces a new game mechanic. You'll be able to collect blood samples and use them to create items. These items can help you kill zombies, or you can make healing items. The items that kill zombies can also be used on the already dead zombies. This is because they've reintroduced a concept from the first Resident Evil game. If you remember the Crimson Heads, then you will recognize the Blister Heads. These zombies will come back after death even stronger than before. If you don't want to deal with that, you need to use these items on the dead zombies as well, but keep in mind that pretty much everything in Grace's section is extremely limited, so you're not going to have enough of those for every zombie. Leon's gameplay is more action focused, which is why I recommend third person. This is the 4th mainline game he's been in, so he's very experienced by this point. He's very fun to play, and it's a nice break from the terrifying gameplay in Grace's sections. He has way more weapons, and rather than just the usual survival horror sneaking that Grace will be doing, you can just kill every zombie standing in your way. Zombies fighting Leon will have weapons, but you can just take them from them and then use them right back. Finally, Leon gets to use the chainsaw rather than just be chased around by it. Story-wise, what games do you need to know before starting this? Like all the previous titles, I think you can enjoy RE9 on its own, but playing other games will enhance the experience. For Grace, it might be worth it to check out Outbreak since it features her mother, Alyssa Ashcroft. For Leon, checking out all his previous games will help to understand the now 50-year-old zombie veteran. He's featured in RE2, 4, and 6. One other game you can check out is RE3 if you want to see more on Racoon City. Based on some theories, I'm also going to go ahead and recommend RE1, Code Veronica, and RE5, but like always, feel free to just check out the whole series. Up to you. Resident Evil Requiem is available on Xbox Series X and S, PC, PlayStation 5, and Nintendo Switch 2. These are all of the mainline games in the series. Most of these would be great starting places for a new player. Despite all of the games being connected, I honestly believe you can pick most of them up without knowing any of the other games and still enjoy it. Pick whichever one looks fun to you, and then just go from there. If you would like some recommendations on play orders, then I'm going to use this post that I found from a user on Reddit. Here's the release order and the main action games order. There's also a canon chronological order, but I'll be going over that after I get through all of the spin-offs. I'll link this post below if you want to look into it. If you have played through all of these and still crave more games, then stick around. I'm going to try and speedrun all of the 14 spin-offs games the series has to offer. I apologize if I don't spend a lot of time on them. This video is already getting very long. Resident Evil Survivor is a first-person shooter. The game has tank controls. You have to stand still while shooting and control your aim with the D-pad. Doors and items will automatically interact with you when you walk into them. The inventory system is not well organized, so prepare to scroll for a while to find specific items. The game was mainly designed for a gun controller, so it's not quite as smooth on a PS1 controller. The game feels like a weird arcade game, but it was never an arcade game. Continues are timed and lives are limited. There are no saves, so you have to beat the whole game in one sitting. When you die or beat the game, you can sort of save, but it's mainly so you can retry the game with all the equipment you already have. The game only lasts about 2 to 3 hours, so it's not too hard to beat in a day. I tried the game on easy mode. It's really hard to get killed. I wanted to see how long it would take to die, and I had to stand there for a few minutes while 4 different guys tried to kill me. The handgun had infinite ammo, but other guns do not. I recommend saving ammo for your big guns for the bigger boss fights. The game has branching paths for replayability. These paths are mainly different areas you can go through with different enemies. There's a little bit of plot to make things more entertaining. The story paths are split into 3, with the victor path probably being the best one. I honestly had more fun with this game than I thought I would, so if you want a fun little shooter to play for an afternoon, check it out. Resident Evil Survivor is available on PS1, but it can be a little pricey depending on who you buy it from. Unless you really want it in your collection, I recommend just emulating the game if you're able. So somehow Survivor managed to get a sequel, Resident Evil Survivor 2 Code Veronica. This game actually started as an arcade game, unlike its predecessor. The game was later ported to PlayStation. The translations of the game aren't that good, so just be prepared for that. The story is basically a mix of rushing the plot of Code Veronica and some other random stuff, which can be found in a long diary entries that you have to watch. The gameplay is meant to be played with a gun controller, so playing with the controller is a bit of a struggle. You can now move while shooting, but you can't aim. The animations in UI are all a little janky. It's honestly a mess. The game is not good. None of the different game modes are good. Arcade rushes you and has cheap tricks because it's meant to get you to spend money on an arcade machine. Dungeon mode feels incredibly repetitive. Everything looks the same. The looping music gets annoying really fast, and I just got really annoyed playing it. Unlocking versus roach mode just shows how bad being unable to aim is, because I just have to hope that the bugs will run into my bullets. Just play literally any other Resident Evil. The only way you can own it is by getting a Japanese PS2 copy, and unless you just really want to complete your Resident Evil collection, I would not bother getting this game. Resident Evil Gaiden is a spin-off made for the Game Boy Color. It attempts to bring horror to handheld and struggles a bit in the process. The story revolves around Barry Burton and Leon Kennedy. It's not canon and is considered a what-if scenario. The story is honestly not that well written. The gameplay is similar to other Resident Evil games in that you fight zombies and wander a mansion and have to find items. However, the game design is not that good compared to the other games in the series. Even if you just want the game to finish your collection, it's outrageously expensive, and it's not good enough to play in general. Play it with an emulator if you really want to cover all your bases, but there are much better games in the series you could be playing instead. Dead Aim is the 4th Gun Survivor game. The 3rd was a dinosaur-themed one, so not really Resident Evil related. You move around in 3rd person, but you shoot in 1st person. The game uses tank controls in your default state of running. You can hold down a button to sneak. L1 lets you sneak with tank controls, and L2 lets you sneak, but you can't turn. If you sneak well, the zombies won't notice you. When you shoot normally, you can't move, but if you shoot while sneaking, you can move. In 3rd person mode, you cannot control the camera at all. The game takes place on a boat stranded at sea. Resident Evil really likes having people get stuck on boats. The story is insane, but luckily the game is only 1 to 2 hours long. Despite how cheesy it is, I kinda enjoyed the story and its obsession with slow motion in the cutscenes. I found it really entertaining. It's available on PlayStation 2, but I don't think it's worth the price people are selling it for online. Emulate it if you want to try it out, but I wouldn't buy it unless you're just trying to grow your collection. Resident Evil Outbreak is an online multiplayer game. There's also an offline mode that you can play alone. At the start, you get to choose one of 8 different characters. They all have their own weapons and skills. One character you might recognize is Alyssa Ashcroft. This is Grace's mom in Resident Evil Requiem. You are allowed up to 4 people per group. The characters are able to say lines on command. This ad-lib system was supposed to make up for the lack of online chat. When playing alone, the AI will constantly yap, which can be pretty annoying. Each character has their own intro and outro scenes for the scenarios. It gives the game a lot of replayability. The game features 5 main scenarios that you can play through. Because it's online, your inventory won't carry over between scenarios. You have 2 options for the main controls. The D-pad lets you do tank controls, the left analog stick lets you move normally. Since it's a more fast-paced multiplayer experience, I recommend sticking with the analog control stick movement. This is also one of the few classic horror titles that lets you move while shooting. There are melee weapons you can use. These will break over time and you can eventually throw them. If you have no weapons, you can shove the enemies. The inventory is limited to 4 spots per character. You'll be sharing and trading items between the group. It can be annoying trying to keep track of all 4 characters and getting items from them in the single player mode. You can request items from them, but the AI tends to hog ammo and healing items. If you want to have an easier time trading, make sure to not pick survivors that hate each other because they will refuse all trade requests. The game will force you to rush through it because everyone is infected. The percentage gauge will go up as you play, and if you hit 100%, you turn into a zombie. There are antiviral pills you can take to slow it down, but they're very limited. In online mode, when you turn into a zombie, you get to terrorize your friends, but since online is no longer available, available, you'll just die when you hit 100. This game can be difficult in single player, even on easy mode. Keep that in mind before you jump into it. If you look for extra items and get a lot of points, you can unlock extra outfits and other extra things. Outbreak is available on PS2. The online servers are shut off, but you can still play the offline mode. The game is kind of expensive to get now, but it's pretty fun and worth looking into, at least emulating, especially since it has some small connections to RE9. Outbreak has a sequel called File 2. It's honestly more of a part 2 and features 5 more scenarios. The ad-lib system is slightly improved here. You can now help players with puzzles using it, and you can talk to the NPCs. I think the story between both games is entertaining and helps to expand the Racoon City incident. I mentioned that online is no longer available, which is true, but there is still a way to play online. There are fan-made servers that you can find online. Using emulation and hard work of the fans, you can now play the game online with your friend. Outbreak File 2 is also only available on PS2 for a very high price. I really hope the Outbreak games get remade or at least re-released. Online is much easier to do now, and with the connections to RE9, I think it would be a fun game to play. So much stuff in the Resident Evil series has references to the game, so I recommend checking it out, especially if you can get online working. Umbrella Chronicles is an on-rail shooter originally released for the Wii, but was later ported to the PS3. For the Wii version, you'll be aiming using the motion controls. The PS3 version uses the motion control camera and is a little more reliable. It has built-in lag for the motion controls, so the easiest way to play is to emulate it on PC and play with the mouse if you're able. The scenarios in this game mainly retell the events of RE0, 1, and 3, but in a very short, condensed version. There's a final scenario with a new story that features Chris and Jill infiltrating an Umbrella facility in Russia, but the new story content isn't really worth getting the game, like, just for that. Umbrella Chronicles is available on the Wii and is not terribly priced if you want a physical copy. The PS3 physical version is only available in Japan. You'll have to buy the game on the PS3 store if you want it in English. Umbrella Chronicles managed to get a sequel called Darkside Chronicles. This game retells the stories of RE2 and Code Veronica. It also has an extra scenario featuring Leon and Krauser after the events of RE2. The biggest improvement in the story I've seen is that people liked Steve more in this version. If you hated him in Code Veronica, you might not hate him here. The gameplay is very improved in the sequel. The lag for the movement is gone, making it easier to aim. You can now adjust settings for sensitivity and reloading. Overall, the gameplay and plot have improved a lot. The only con this game has is the camera. It tries to replicate human movement, making the camera wobble a lot. It makes aiming a bit... One thing I really haven't mentioned yet is the Mercanaries mode included in a majority of the mainline Resident Evil titles. The Wii version is more expensive, and the PS3 version is in the same collection that I mentioned earlier. This mode allows you to kill as many enemies as you can before the timer runs out. They decided to try to release this mode as a full game, known as Mercenaries 3D. If you couldn't tell by the 3D in the title, this was made for the 3DS. It has 8 characters and 8 maps that you can play with. Most of the stuff is pulled from RE5 Mercenaries. This game could be fun and a nice addition to your Resident Evil collection, but I wouldn't spend too much money on it. The 3DS game prices can vary online, but if you find a copy for a reasonable price, I think it's worth checking out. Operation Racoon City is a multiplayer shooter that takes place during the Racoon City incident. You'll start by picking a character, which is essentially picking a class. Then you can select different passive and active abilities. The game honestly struggles to run most of the time. The graphics are inconsistent, and the online was bad enough that they just pulled it from the Steam store altogether. The concept of playing as Umbrella soldiers, trying to get rid of evidence that the Umbrella was involved in, is really cool, but the execution just isn't done well. The ending is interesting, at least. The game is available for PS3 and Xbox 360. It's not expensive if you're curious. Umbrella Corps is another online multiplayer shooter. It plays like most online shooters, and it's okay. I got it for like $6 on Steam, and that was the Deluxe Edition DLC included. It's available on PS4 and PC. If you want to try it out, get it on sale. Resident Evil Resistance is a multiplayer game. There's starting to be a pattern here. Resistance plays a bit like Dead by Daylight, but you get to fight back. It's 4 survivors versus 1 mastermind. I think the game is only available as an add-on with other Resident Evil games. I think when I bought the remakes of RE2 and 3, it just got added to my library. I don't see any way to buy it separately. If you happen to get it with the game, check it out if you're curious. Resident Evil Reverse is the last multiplayer Resident Evil game. I'm not going to go into this one because it's permanently shut down and you can't play it at all now. They keep trying to make online multiplayer, but aren't remaking Outbreak? Praying to God that after Resident Evil 9 they will go back and remake Outbreak. There is also a mobile game called Survival Unit. It exists. Check it out if you want, but it doesn't add much to the overall canon. I'll link the official Canon Games play order below in the description if you want to check that out. And at the end of the list, I'll go ahead and add on that play Resident Evil Village, Resident Evil Requiem, and then the Resident Evil Village DLC if you want to play it in the canon chronological order. There's an even bigger play order after this that lists all the canon films and books as well. I'll go over all the films and books briefly, but I won't be covering that full order since it's so long. You can check it out in the full post once again, that I linked below in the description. First off, there is a short film in 4D called Biohazard 4D Executor. This was meant to be watched at a theme park with the 4D experience, but you can find it for free on YouTube if you want to see what it is. There are a couple animated films that you can check out that are all canon to the universe. The first mainline animated movie is Resident Evil Degeneration. This takes place after Resident Evil 4. After Degeneration, there's a mini animated series called Resident Evil Infinite Darkness. This takes place after the first Revelations game. The next movie is Resident Evil Damnation, which takes place after RE5 and Revelations 2. The last two movies take place after RE6. The movies are Resident Evil Vendetta and Resident Evil Death Island. For the live action films, there are 6 connecting films that are loosely connected to Resident Evil, but mainly feature an overpowered original character named Alice. Is it good? No. But if you turn your brain off, they can be fun, stupid movies to watch. The closest we had to an accurate live-action movie is Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. I'll start by saying the sets and creatures are very well done. The writing and characters, not so much. They tend to mischaracterize a lot of people. The biggest mistake was that they tried to combine Resident Evil 1 and 2 into one movie. Those games are very separate, and it is impossible to cover everything and everyone well in such a short amount of time. If they wanted to combine games, why not do 0 and 1 or 2 and 3? Those are closer together canonically and in the same location. It really feels like half the people working on it loved the Resident Evil games, but the other half had their own ideas and only cared about spending their budget on all the 90s music they put in. As of right now, it's technically the best Resident Evil movie, but that's not saying much. Zach Kreger, the director of Weapons and Barbarian, is currently working on a new Resident Evil movie. Only time will tell if he does a good job or if the live action curse continues. There is also a live action short film that was released to promote Requiem. Look up Evil Has Always Had a Name on YouTube. It's really short and it's very well done. There is one live action TV show available on Netflix. It honestly feels like they just slapped some names on it, and other than that, it has no real connections to the games. I feel like it's hard to enjoy even if you think of it as its own separate show. Just ignore it. There are so many great games you could spend your time playing instead. The series also has a lot of novels. There are 7 books by S.D. Perry, but these are mainly novelizations of the games. 2 of the books are technically original stories though. There are 6 novelizations of the live action films, but the first one was only ever released in Japan. There are 8 more books that I won't be going into because this video is already really long. Check them out if you're interested, but be warned, a couple are Japan exclusive, so you'll have to find fan translations if you want to read them all. There are also at least 10 different comics and manga you can look into as well. And finally, there are 3 different stage plays. You can find recordings with subtitles on YouTube. That covers everything the Resident Evil series has to offer. It is a massive franchise and you'll never run out of media. I hope this guide was helpful whether you're a brand new fan or someone just looking for more Resident Evil content. Like and subscribe, your support means a lot. Let me know what series you want to see me cover next in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!